Well, where do you start with Bill Thomas? I mean, there's so many things I want to tap his wisdom on, but let's start with, if we may, the pedestrian easement between Stockdale Estates and Amberton, which I wrote about a week ago. A lot of issues there that come into play. Zoning and privacy and private property rights. I sort of in my column advocated that they need to take the wall down and let people walk back and forth like had been the case. What's your take on that, Bill?
Well, that probably is number one on your list of things happening in and around Bakersfield and Kern County. I was going to ask you, though, what page in today's Californian is the coverage of the major debate for an hour last night between the two Senate candidates that are going to represent more people than are represented in a congressional district in Sacramento after the July 23rd election? What page is it on in this paper?
I think I
Did
don't
you
know.
see the paper?
I
morning?
did see the paper.
I did not see the debate. Did you see the debate?
Yes.
And?
You didn't cover it in the paper, so those who missed it don't know what went on. But let's talk about a cul-de-sac. This is one of the things that disturbs me a lot about the way in which the community is informed about, and I will admit to you, someone building a wall on their private property between two adjoining cul-de-sacs, of which there may be 50 to 100 in the greater area, principally built in the county area before the city annexed it, with no concern about what was going to happen to the bean field next to them. But since there was a cul-de-sac there in the first place, the next tract built the cul-de-sac next to that, because otherwise you'd actually have to spend some money to make a through road. So that is the thing we lead this discussion off with.
Well, knock it out, and then we can go on to the important things.
Knock it out. You spent an entire column talking about the fact that there was a track map which showed the passage. Then there was the newer track map that didn't show the passage. So apparently the passage went up to the beginning of the next cul-de-sac. And so rather than have people cross, and of course everybody said, well, gee, we were going to the school that way, you never showed the multiple ways in which children could get to school. It was as though it's an impossibility to get to the school if you didn't cut through this private property, which is admittedly in one tract, but had planned to be public access in the other. Did you question why the school district hasn't responded to a closed method of getting to the school and changed the school bus route, which would have solved the problem for most of those people?
They did change it.
They did change it, yeah.
The school bus.
They have changed it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So we've got to add another route. It's another bus. It's more pollution. Or we've got kids. We have parents talking about, well, now my kid has to walk
Okay.
out on the Ming Avenue or something.
Okay, so if somebody has a track map which shows private property, and they honor that track map, which is private property, you want to go all over Bakersfield and find out where there are clashes of that type, and based upon a few people, and if you look at the larger picture, a few people devote that entire column to the fact that they should, to quote someone familiar, tear down that wall.
It was a talker. I had people saying thank you, and a couple people saying you're crazy, and when I get feedback.
How many said thank you, and how many said you're crazy?
Oh,
'Cause
probably.
I want to add one to one of those columns.
Well, I don't know. Probably 10 said way to go, and maybe 2 or 3 said look at this situation again, Mr. Price.
Okay. The paper ran a tremendous 3-page full picture front page on a newly elected city councilman who won with less than 800 votes. And one of the candidates for the state senate donated to that young man's campaign $10,000. The former state senator, donated $15,000. He had $78,000 contributed. And that's more than $100 a vote. Did he spend it all? What campaign fund did he put it in? I mean, those are the kinds of questions that I think more than 15 people would be interested in finding out. One, why so much ink?
It takes a lot of money to get a guy elected who's only lived in the district for 6 months.
Well,
Expensive.
They didn't even get 800 votes. No, there's a lot of money left over. The debate last night was, I think, fascinating. It was really amazing. First of all, you got to understand in the 16th Senate District, and you ran in the paper a diagram of that district. But I don't know if you can see this or not. The shape of the district is so very interesting because whoever gets elected to this seat will represent people in Kern County all the way below Arvin and more than 100 miles to the north, a major portion of Fresno. Now, how in the world would anybody draw that kind of a district? It was drawn because of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which the Supreme Court just last week said no longer needed to be done. So this is a vestige of taking people, looping them together to try to create a district which would elect minorities. Now, interestingly, the congressional district looks almost exactly the same, which you might expect based upon the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And there was a minority, and there is a minority, that's been elected to this district for over 3 decades. Jim Costa and now David Valadeo, both of whom are of Portuguese ancestry coming from the Azores.
By the way, Bill, we did cover that debate. It was in Friday's paper because it was taped on Thursday night and played last night. In fact, here it is.
Yeah, I saw it.
You didn't read it?
Yeah, I
Okay.
read it.
Could I show it to you again?
And I have copies
Okay.
of it.
All right.
So people
Why would we run it?
probably wouldn't have watched it then Sunday night.
No.
Did you talk about the 3 admissions of mistakes on the part of the newly elected 5th District Supervisor in terms of her representing numbers and aspects of Andy Vidak's campaign, which were flat out inaccurate? Was that in that story?
I don't know.
This is really starting to feel like a deposition.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
No. But I
want
mean,
legal
this wall,
counsel
this
here.
wall between 2 cul-de-sacs is important.
Well, we'll get to back to that later, but we can come back. Let's talk about the 16th. I want to ask you about Leticia Perez and those 3 admissions last night.
We'll do that after this. We got to take a break or we're all going to get in, well, how much trouble could we get in? Richard Bean sitting right here.